Hello, everyone. Thank you for engaging with us this evening for our virtual program on parenting in a gender-based violence environment. We hope you'll sit back, relax as we learn what gender-based violence is, who's at risk, how to parent in a gender-based violence environment, and learn tips, tools, and strategies to support you. You will also hear about what supports and services are available to you and your family here in Nova Scotia. Before we get started with the program, we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship. We are all treaty people. Let's get started. Before we get into our presentations this evening, I'd like to introduce all of you to the voices you'll be hearing this evening. First, let me introduce you to Amanda Dines. Amanda is the Child, Youth, and Parenting Support Counselor at Autumn House. Next is Megan McNeil. Megan is a Child and Youth Outreach Worker at the Mi'kmaq Family Healing Center in Millbrook. Next is Melissa Clark, who will be co-facilitating with me tonight. Melissa is the Inclusion Navigator at the Halifax and Region MFRC. And my name is Ann Sampson Roach, and I'm a Family Wellbeing Counselor also at the Halifax and Region MFRC. Tonight, we have the great privilege of introducing you to two distinguished presenters who work on the front lines with women and children who have fled gender-based violence situations with their children. Both of our speakers are child and youth counselors with the Transition Homes of Nova Scotia, and again, they are Amanda Dines and Megan McNeil. Each presenter will be speaking to you tonight for about 20 minutes about their gender-based violence work with women and children. After each speaker has had the opportunity to present their work, we will have a question and answer period. Participants will have the opportunity to ask presenters questions using the chat feature. We ask that you frame your question to the speakers directed at their work that they have presented here this evening. Speakers will not be taking any personal questions based on your personal circumstances. You may use the chat box to ask a question, and my co-facilitator Melissa will ask each speaker the question on your behalf. Time will be limited, and we may not be able to get to everyone's question. Please contact the MFRC if your question was not read, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. Our first presenter this evening is Amanda Dines. Amanda has been a child, youth, and parenting support counselor at Autumn House in Amherst for the past 2.5 years. She has a Bachelor of Social Studies, a Bachelor of Education, and almost 13 years of experience with children, youth, and their families in different roles and capacities. It is my pleasure to welcome Amanda. Please go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, thank you very much for having me today. First, I'm actually going to begin today with a bit of a visualization. And this visualization has the potential to be triggering for someone who is or has experienced intimate partner violence. Our bodies are really great at letting us know where our boundary is. You'll feel it when you're getting close. I invite you to decide to put me on mute when I begin, or you can choose to push your boundaries a bit. If you're choosing to push, I want you to balance pushing your boundaries with noticing your discomfort and deciding to say, yeah, this is my edge, and then putting me on mute. Once I'm finished, I'm going to give you a thumbs up to let you know that it's safe to rejoin us with the volume on. Okay, I'm going to start. I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze so that your visual field is reduced. Let yourself notice you are sitting in a chair or on a couch, and move your feet to the ground if they're not already there. Wiggle your toes to help you connect with the ground under you, supporting you. I would like you to begin this exercise by holding the image in your mind of what I will call a safe man. This can be a man you know, or a man from a film or a novel. Either are fine. Some of us can't find someone in our real lives that we could give this description to, and so an imaginary man works here. When I say safe man, I'm describing a man who does not frighten children, a man who does not intimidate or belittle women, a man who is not violent or threatening. This is a man who is respectful and kind, a gentleman, a safe man. Hold that image. Notice how you feel, how your body feels as you imagine this person. Now I want you to set this image aside. Now I will ask you to imagine a different person. I want you to think of a woman, a mother, maybe about 26 years old. Today has been really hard for her. She has a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they've been home for a few days now because of a positive COVID test. Neither kiddo seems sick, but they were both emotional wrecks today. So is she. She looks up at the clock and her heart sinks. She starts to panic. Her husband will be home soon. The house is a write-off and she hasn't even started dinner. She just realized she forgot to take out meat to defrost. Her chest tightens, her legs feel like jello, and she's shaking and sobbing quietly to herself while she scrambles to try to get the dishes done. And the kids are being needy again. She plops them in front of in front of tablets with a treat. But what if he walks in right now and sees them eating candy in front of a screen? Her thoughts are all over the place. Her palms are sweating and she's frantically trying to get the toys in the bins and the dirty diapers to the trash. Suddenly she hears the front door open. What might happen now? Now I'd like you to imagine that her husband is one of those safe men you visualized at the beginning of this activity. What happens now? Maybe he embraces her and shares his calm. He helps her pick up and then he gets on the phone and orders some pizza for dinner. I invite you to open your eyes and bring your gaze back to the screen. What if we lived in a world full of safe people? The ultimate long-term goal of what we do is just that, to create a world full of safe people, people who know what safe looks like, people who know what safe feels like, people who know how to be safe. Our ultimate goal is to break the cycle. We're going to head into some definitions and then a bit of kind of an overview to show you some of the ways we're working towards that. But first, we're going to do a quick mindfulness exercise that I like to use with the kiddos to recenter us and get us ready for the rest of the presentation. I want you to scrunch up your toes and make all the muscles in your legs really, really strong. Try not to hold your breath as you straighten and stiffen your back, and then squeeze the muscles in your arms. Make your hands into fists and scrunch up your face real tight if you feel like it. If you want, squeeze your eyes shut. Now take a long breath in. And as you let the air out, slowly let all those muscles go. Take another long breath in. And as you let the air out, release and relax all your muscles and settle deeper into your chair. So we're going to go through a few things. First, we're going to start just with some basic definitions about what gender-based violence and abuse are. Then we're going to talk a bit about where we are and what we offer, and then a deeper dive into some of the topics that we might cover in our time together. So first, what is gender-based violence? Gender-based violence refers to harmful acts directed at an individual based on their gender expression, identity, or perceived gender. It's rooted in gender equality, the abuse of power, and harmful norms. Anyone can be affected by gender-based violence. However, women, girls, and members of the LGBTQ2S+ community are more at risk of experiencing gender-based violence. And this last part is why I chose to structure the visualization that we did the way I did. Intersectionality matters. Some are at even higher risk due to the additional discrimination and barriers that they face. This includes women with disabilities, Indigenous women, racialized women, trans and non-binary people, and women who are homeless or underhoused. So for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to be focusing on abuse of an intimate partner. And abuse is a repetitive pattern of behaviors to maintain power and control over an intimate partner. While we often assume that abuse is physical, there are in fact many forms of domestic violence. Some are less obvious and difficult to see, but are no less devastating. Different forms of abuse can be occurring at the same time. And you can see around here that I've listed some of the different kinds of abuse that we often focus on. In this also, Isolation is often used as a way to control. And so the isolation that comes with living in a transitional community, plus likely being stationed away from friends and family, can make that isolation piece worse. We can be part of your network of support if you'll let us be. You can either reach out to us and ask to remain anonymous so you can test the waters and get a feel for us. We don't have call display. Or you can opt to set up regular appointments with a women's support counselor. It's completely free and completely confidential, with the typical limits of confidentiality, example being a risk to yourself or others. We understand that often during your partner's deployment may be the only time you get some time to reach out for help. We do our best to be as flexible as you need us to be. And if you need to take a time out from using our services for whatever reason, we can pick right back up with our working relationship as soon as you're ready or able to. We're always here for you. So this slide here shows some of the shelters we have, all of the shelters we have across the province. And I've noted a few using stars on the side. Alice House, the first one there that starred, is a second stage shelter. Naomi Society, which has 1 star down under Millbrook, they are outreach only. Willow House, I didn't notice there, but Willow House is also Cape Breton Transitional House. And then Millbrook and Wakeba offer culturally sensitive support and care for Indigenous peoples, but I want to be sure to note that they serve all people. And the next slide, please. So our range of services, because first of all, we have a 24-hour communal emergency shelter here. And often people think that is the beginning and end of the services that we offer. So we also have a 24-hour crisis line. We have in-house support counseling, outreach support counseling. We do court support and accompaniment, advocacy, emergency protection order applications, support with navigating systems and services, paperwork support, parenting support. We have pet programs. We have a specific pet, it's called Pet Safe here at Autumn House, but other shelters have connections with animal shelters or vets in their communities to help ensure that owning pets and not wanting to leave them behind is not a barrier for leaving an unsafe situation. We also have men's programs, children and youth programs, and we do school and community presentations. And so I've noted here something that many people don't know, and that's that you don't need to access shelter ever in order to receive services. In fact, most of the people that we support never come in for shelter at all. Another one is that many women who use our services are still in the relationships that they're wanting to talk about. They want to find a way to keep their family together, but in a healthier way, and that's okay. We can still be here and be a support system for that. So now we're going to briefly go over some of the topics you might cover with a women's support counselor if you are doing in-house support counseling or outreach support counseling. Your time with your counselor is highly individualized and based on your wants and needs. But I'll just go over a few of the possibilities to help give you an idea of what appointments might look like. And then I'll end on a piece specific to parenting children and youth before handing it over to Megan. So this first one here, the cycle of abuse. This is a topic that's often covered. It looks different in every relationship. Sometimes there's no honeymoon period or calm. Sometimes it's like there isn't any warning, like there's no tension building period. Often though, an abusive relationship has its own patterns. Learning to recognize the pattern can be a powerful realization and can be incredibly helpful for safety planning. And the next topic that you might cover is healthy love. What does healthy love look like? What does equality look like? What does equity look like? And another topic we might cover is, next slide, please. Thanks. Red flags. So you might go over what some of the red flags you might see in this current relationship or future relationships, to help kind of create a pattern of searching for and knowing what a healthy relationship feels like. You might go over some boundaries and values. And when I think of boundaries, I kind of envision like a property line or the defining lines of a shape, kind of. Boundaries help you define what you are comfortable with and how you would like to be treated by others. Even though we talk about them in relation to other people, in some ways, boundaries are really about your relationship with yourself. They help you honor your needs, your goals, feelings, and values. I do need to be very clear here, though. Having unhealthy boundaries is not the reason somebody hurts you. The entirety of the blame for hurting another person is on the person doing the hurting. You did not and cannot make anyone do anything. It is their choice to cause harm, and it's not your fault. And then another topic you might cover with a women's support counselor is self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, self-love. In an abusive, intimate partner relationship, often these areas are deeply impacted. And so recognizing your strengths and all of the amazing things about you can be really helpful in healing. And then reconnection and healing. So this is where I work most often. And so we often think we're protecting children and youth by not talking to them about family violence, but we severely underestimate their ability to pick up on things and completely overestimate our ability to keep things from them if we are not being truthful with them in age-appropriate ways, and helping them work through their feelings about family violence. I assure you they're still working through it, only they're doing it alone. We cannot heal or soothe what we don't acknowledge. When children have big feelings, or when their big feelings become big behaviors, much of our society has taught for generations to isolate, to seclude, to withdraw, or to try and reason with them with words. What these behaviors actually tell us is that they need us to pull them closer in whatever way is comforting for that particular child. Quick tangent, the try to reason with kids who have big behaviors thing always gets me. So we all have, this is our brain, and we all have a downstairs brain and an upstairs brain. The downstairs brain is our survival brain. It's primitive, but it keeps us alive. Our upstairs brain is the part that's like, nah, downstairs brain, it's cool, I got this, it's safe, we're safe, and then reasons it out. What happens in your children is that their downstairs brain is much stronger than their upstairs brain. When their downstairs brain grabs a hold of a situation, their upstairs brain can't hear anything you're saying. They need to be back in a place where their upstairs brain can get a word in before they even hear you. So trying to reason with a child whose downstairs brain is taking hold right now is not going to accomplish much other than to continue to frustrate them and you. Further to this, children who experience a lot of stress have had their downstairs brain working out and beefing up for a really, really long time. It's strong. And so the behaviors might be bigger or last longer or be more frequent. And this can be a sign of excessive stress. A few of the most important pieces of information to give your child or children are, and I'm actually going to use my friend Pickles, who helps me out with the kids right now. So this is Pickles, and he's going to help me out with this one. This is Pickles, and Pickles has some information to give you to help your kids work through some of this stuff. So a few of the most important pieces of information to give are: one, it's not your fault, ever, ever, ever. It's never your fault. It's never your fault. Two, you are not alone. There are literal shelters out here to help people who are going through the same thing. You're not alone, and there are other people going through this too. Three, I'm here with you. Yeah, I'm here with you and I can help. And four, it's safe to talk to me about this. Yeah, the kids need to know that, huh? Yeah, kids need to know that it's safe to talk to you about this. Not your fault. You are not alone. I'm here with you and I can help. And it's safe to talk to me about this. These are all the things that Pickles helps me connect parents and children with when they come in to see me at first. So I'm gonna put Pickles back to sleep. Bye. Just the last part for this one, when people come to me for parenting support, when there is or has been violence in the home, they're often missing one of the most essential pieces of the puzzle. The thing that will be the most useful in helping children be okay. Often parents are struggling and wanting me to tell them how to manage their children's behavior and emotions, which I'm happy to support them with. But if I had to choose just one piece of advice to give, it would be that the best way to help your child heal and even thrive is to take care of you. You are the key. And not how many courses or courses you take or podcasts you listen to about children's behavior, but how you are taking care of you. Our children lean on our nervous systems to help manage their own. And if we are in a constant state of heightened stress, if we are in a constant state of fear, if we are not feeling safe, if we are not able to regulate ourselves, and if we are not taking care of our own needs, if we are not okay, we are far less likely to be able to help our kids be okay. Children need us to lend them our calm. But we have to have some calm in order to be able to share it. The most important work you do is within yourself and for you. And so getting in touch here, the sheltersafe.ca website is great. When you go in there, you can click on any province and see all of the shelters that are there and available and accessible to you. And it even goes through different accessibility features within that shelter as well. And then obviously reach out to THANS, the call or text the toll-free number there. And a couple of resources, which we'll go over, I think, later in the resource section as well. The FamilySmart.ca. It's not specific to family violence, but they help children and young people by helping their family and other caring adults to understand, to have, to develop some skills, and to really help them work through some stuff. Self-reg. It helps understanding the effects of excessive stress on behavior, social emotional development, intelligence, empathy, motivation, and character. So some of those things that I had talked about before about excessive stress and things came directly from a self-reg lens. And just some Instagram accounts that are worth the follow. I have a section there for mostly taking care of young children and their, in particular, their emotional needs. Respectful parenting in the middle is for children of a wider range of ages. And then some mental health support for you. Just to help explain what's going on for you and to maybe give you some aha moments of, that's what that is. And a whole lot of empowerment. And I just wanted to end with this quote before I pass it over to Megan. The very fact that you are worrying about being a good parent means that you already are one. And so the work that I do with parents is often strength-based because there are so many things that you're already doing that are pretty amazing. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Amanda, for your very powerful and informative presentation tonight on gender-based violence and parenting and the preventative work that you do within your community at THANS to support those people experiencing gender-based violence. Thank you so much. Our next presenter this evening is Megan McNeil. Megan is a child and youth outreach worker at the Mi'kmaq Family Healing Center in Millbrook. Megan loves working with and supporting youth with the use of all kinds of crafts, mindfulness, and programming. With an educational background in gender studies and social services, Megan has proven to be very passionate about helping others in their lifelong journey. She is currently a student in the Bachelor of Social Work program at Dalhousie University and hopes to continue working with families that have experienced family violence. It is my pleasure to introduce everyone to Megan. Please go ahead, Megan.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well and got to enjoy some of that sun we had in good old Nova Scotia this afternoon. So we're going to start off with, like Anne had said, I work at the Millbrook Mi'kmaq Family Healing Center in Millbrook. So we're going to kind of take a bit of an Indigenous lens on the next couple of slides. So I hope you guys all enjoy. So within an Indigenous culture, there are the 7 sacred teachings. And really, these are the guiding principles in how we live our lives. What's really cool about these teachings is that they're actually connected to different animals. So every single teaching, as you can see on the slide, is connected with a different animal. While this is an Indigenous practice, these teachings can be embraced and connected to anybody. So for this portion of the presentation, I'll be using these teachings to offer guidance on parenting while still experiencing or dealing with the aftermath of gender-based violence within the home. So I'm going to get you guys to do a little bit of an activity. As I read out loud the 7 sacred teachings, feel free to write down which ones connected with you right away. So whatever teaching, just the word resonates with you, I'd like you to write it down. So the 7 sacred teachings are love, honesty, truth, courage, wisdom, respect, and humility. So if you wrote down a teaching or two that resonated with you, have a look at that word and ask yourself, why do you think this teaching stuck out to you? It could be because this was a teaching you're already using in your life, or it could be because this is something to work on, to practice, and to build growth on. So as we walk through this presentation, keep it in the back of your mind. So just keep those words in the back of your mind. And then ask those questions again at the end of the presentation. Wow, is this something that I really need to work on, or is this something that I'm already really embracing? So we can go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So before I get started, I did want to go through a couple of reminders. So we may feel that by staying in an unhealthy relationship, we're benefiting the children. However, as Amanda has noted in her presentation, this really is not always the case. A child can feel when there is tension and is very likely to be impacted by experiencing, which is seeing, hearing, feeling, or sensing violence within the home. Violence is not about being just physical. All forms of violence impact a child. Many factors influence a child's reaction to gender-based violence, as well as their ways of coping. Factors include school, friends, family members, and other community organizations. All children are different in their perceptions, coping strategies, emotions, and personalities. These tips and tricks that are going to be provided are very general and not specific to one child. And as Amanda noted, a lot of our programming is very individualized. When I work with clients, it really is about what they're experiencing, what they're going through, what they need help with and support with. So this is going to provide like a baseline, but it certainly isn't going to be a one size fits all. Okay, so we're going to start with love, which is the eagle. So love is a deep affection that we have for all things that are important to us. This can include Mother Nature, the Creator, loved ones, and ourselves. As we start with love, I want everyone to remember that gender-based violence in the home does not equal no love for the children within it. Number one is more affection. So it is important for all children to experience affection, but it is even more important if they are experiencing gender-based violence within the home. It's also really important to remember that affection is both physical and emotional. Physical affection can include things like hugging and holding, placing a hand on the shoulder, a kiss on the forehead, a high five, or a pound it. With physical affection, it's really important to know or kind of gauge what your child is comfortable with. So some kiddos, even someone like me, is not really a huggy person. Other kiddos they love hugs. They love that physical affection. So it's really important to be mindful of body language. Are they tensing up when you hug them, or are they relaxing? So just kind of watch for those things. Emotional affection is about building that child up. This includes praising and encouraging, listening, laughing, cheering that child on, showing kindness, and validating a child. So this comes in really in handy when you're thinking about these big emotions, right? Those big behaviors. It's really important to validate what that child is feeling instead of, saying it's no big deal. Just forget about it. What you're feeling isn't real. It's about getting on their level and really validating, even if it is a big emotion, what they're going through, kind of seeing it through their eyes. So self-care is not a selfish act, but it's actually a selfless act. So I always like to use the example of getting on an airplane. So when you get on an airplane, you're listening to that safety check. And you've got the people all over the plane doing their little pointing fingers and all that. And they tell you that if the plane goes down, you have to put on your oxygen mask before other people. And of course, as a parent, you're thinking, I'm going to put that oxygen mask on my child first. But what happens if you go to put that oxygen mask on your child and you lose oxygen? Now you both don't have oxygen. So it's critical really to take care of yourself, give yourself oxygen, so then you can give your child that oxygen. Remember also that children are constantly watching and mimicking what we as parents do, which can be funny and not so funny sometimes. So we want them to see that it's important to take care of ourselves. We want our children to grow up and really practice self-care. The third one is having patience, and this can be really difficult. So having patience is showing love to your child. Witnessing violence in a home can lead to all kinds of those big emotions, those big behaviors. A child may begin to have angry outbursts frequently, and that can be stressful and really overwhelming as a parent. Take a deep breath. Walk away for a minute. Understand that they are struggling too. And build patience. This is not to say that we ignore behaviors entirely or look to modify the behaviors, but it just means having a better understanding of why they're acting a certain way and dealing with it in a way that's both healthy and productive. Okay, honesty, which is the sabe or Bigfoot, as we like to call him. So honesty is speaking and acting truthfully. Actions such as being true to our spirit and accepting who we are will guide us in being honest. The sabe walks tall because they know who they are and they accept their truth. This is important when considering the next two tips. Number one, accepting the impact. Accepting the impact on your child due to gender-based violence within the home is not an easy one. However, as Amanda noted earlier, the impact is real and it's there. A child needs to know that what they've experienced is valid, and a great start to that is acknowledging our own parts in what has happened. Accepting the impact is also important in order just to move on. When we cannot accept something, it becomes stalled in moving forward. And that moving forward piece is just like paramount to being able to heal, right? If we want to heal, if we want to move further, we have to kind of accept what we've gone through and heal from that. So just like the sabe, we want to build confidence, right? So when we think of that sabe, we think standing tall, right? Just like I was doing earlier with the hands on the hips, just walking and everything else. So we want them to stand up tall. We want them to be confident. Building confidence is important to parenting. So we can build confidence by doing a couple of different things. Encouraging them to try new and positive things, maybe sport, maybe they saw a new friend at the park, maybe some crafts. This can include tasks around the house like chores, maybe, somewhat you ask them to start vacuuming. That can be exciting. You can make it exciting. It can be a whole routine. From a very young age, most children are able to contribute in very small ways. And that gives them really a sense of empowerment, and it also builds on routine. So help when it's requested. So this one's really hard, but children need to make mistakes and work things out on their own. They need to know that they can problem solve. Unless they're in immediate danger, allow them to navigate a little bit of their struggles. If they ask for help, great. And if they fail, it is not an I told you so moment. It's how can we fix this? How can we get better at this? How can we improve? So then there's praising effort. It is important not to overpraise a child because then it loses its value. Whether a child was successful in whatever they were doing, praising their attempts will build confidence in them trying. So if you see a child really trying something, and even if they, quote unquote, fail, it's really important to say, good effort, good try. You did awesome. I saw you get up there. You did it. Good job. Next slide. Thank you. So then there's courage, and that's the bear. And I often think when I think of courage, I do think of the mama bear, right? Protecting those cubs. You never want to mess with the cub when mama bear is there. So how do we look at courage? So courage is the ability to face danger and fear and changes with confidence and bravery. So we're going to talk about two things here. Asking for help, which takes a lot of courage. Whether you experience gender-based violence or perpetrating it, asking for help is not an easy task. It takes a lot of courage. Asking for help is a parenting tip because in the end, it will help the child. It also shows them that it's okay to ask for help and validates that their experience was not an okay one. And then there's maintain routine, which as a child and youth outreach worker is like the main thing when working with parents that I try to kind of get out there. The routine is so important. So if nothing else is remembered in this session, just remember one thing: kids need routine. A home with violence is often unpredictable. For example, not knowing whether a parent will come home happy or if they're going to come home upset and out of control. A routine allows a child to know what is expected and ultimately makes them feel safe. If there is still violence in the home, it is important to try and maintain routine as much as you possibly can. Ways to maintain routine are attendance in school, a regular bedtime and wake up time, a visual schedule in the common room, like a kitchen or a living room, weekly outings that a child can look forward to. And it's really important to remember that the same applies when having to live in a shelter. So even if that's something like if you're escaping gender-based violence and you're in, let's say, Autumn House or the Mi'kmaq Family Healing Center, it's even the little things like, okay, let's make sure we get to bed by 8 p.m. or okay, let's wake up and get to school. Those, what might seem like little things, really help maintain the routine and still create that predictable, safe environment for the child. Okay. So wisdom, which is the beaver, wisdom is the ability to make decisions based on personal knowledge and experience. Knowledge is information, but wisdom is doing. So part of wisdom is about sharing it with others. This means learning about what gender-based violence is and introducing this topic in an age-appropriate way. Ultimately, this will help a child grow up to help have healthy relationships, to know what those red flags are, and to understand what abuse is and what it may look like. Because sometimes it's even hard. You know, we often have women come in who don't realize that what they've experienced is abuse. And so to have those conversations with your child really lets them know, what am I looking for? So ideas or ways to teach a child would include consent. This can start at a very young age by listening to a child when they don't want to hug a certain person. You can also teach a child consent when it comes to tickling. Tickling is okay if the other person is okay with it. Having conversations about what they're seeing on TV or what they're watching on TikTok. Are the TV shows or the social media encouraging unhealthy relationships and poor boundaries? There are so many books of all ages to explore these topics. Books about emotions, empathy, family dynamics, relationships, everything. Spend time reading with them by forming a family book club or read with them as a nighttime routine. And then breaking down gender stereotypes. Men do not need to be tough and emotionless, and women do not need to be weak and emotional. So the other thing to consider is if you are in an abusive relationship, it's important to create a safety plan, especially if you do have children. Oftentimes there's not a lot of time when leaving, which means little time to think or pack or let the children know what's going on. Creating a safety plan allows you more time to think about what will be the safest for you, but also the children. The really cool thing is that you can do a safety plan with your children. There are tons of resources online, but some information to include would be, who do you call on an emergency? Who are the trusted people in your community? What's a code word that can be used when leaving the house? Or even what's a safe place within the home that they can go to feel safe? Okay, respect, which is the buffalo. So respect is treating people, places, and things in a way that shows you honor and you care for them. Many people do not know there's a difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline is meant to be a learning moment that helps a child's growth. Punishment is meant to shame a child into not repeating an act. Examples of punishment include physical pain, so this can be hitting, slapping, spanking, threats. Next time, I'm going to slap the stupid out of you. Or degrading comments. Why can't you clean the kitchen right? Are you stupid? Examples of discipline include role modeling. So maybe you go and you help the child clean by showing them what's expected. Natural consequences. So not going to sleep until really late means not being able to fully participate in school activities because they're tired. So maybe they couldn't hang out with their friends at lunch because they were just so exhausted. So then they'll start to learn, maybe I should get my 8 hours of sleep. And gets a child thinking about that future behavior. So staying up past curfew by 10 minutes so that the child's the next night's curfew is reduced by that time. So if I stay out late, that means I have to come in even earlier the next day. So they'll start thinking about it. And then respecting a child also means understanding that they are in a healing process. These things take time, and a child may not be ready to talk about it just because you are. This does not mean isolating your child or avoiding hard topics like violence within the home. It means respecting the child's boundaries. Examples of giving time for healing include reminding your child that you're here if they ever need to talk, asking if they would like to talk to another trusted adult, like a guidance counselor, or letting them at least know it's an option. Listening when a child is opening up about their feelings or experiences, which also leads into avoiding asking a lot of questions. So you want the child to be the guide. You don't want to kind of investigate or interview the child. You want to just kind of let it flow and see what comes out. And offering alternative ways of communication. So I like to do a lot of art and crafts. And usually when, kiddos are playing with something and they're painting, things start to come out and healing starts to happen. So having a space where they can talk, but also express how they're feeling through drawing or paintings or whatever is also helpful. Okay, humility, which is the wolf. Humility is about having sensitivity towards others, respecting their way of doing things, and listening to them. It means having self-awareness of personal strengths and limitations and knowing you have the capacity for change and growth. Being humble can mean acknowledging what has happened and understanding that it does impact your child. As you can see, we have talked about this in a previous slide, which shows just how interconnected these teachings really are. Examples of how to listen and validate your children's story, or your child's story, include validating statements. I believe you. I'm glad that we are talking about this. I'm sorry that's what you had to experience. Take deep breaths. If you're becoming overwhelmed and defensive, actively listen, which means listening to what the child is saying before thinking of a response. When we listen, sometimes we're half listening, but we're also trying to come up with the response right away. So it's really important to just kind of empty that mind a little bit and focus on exactly what the child is saying. Asking what the child's needs are. Do they need anything from you? And using both physical and emotional affection. Being the parent in a home where there is or where there was or is violence can lead to feelings of guilt or even shame. Sometimes it can be easier to deny that things were that bad or that the child was really affected. Denying a violent event happened is also denying the child's perceived experience, which is also why it's kind of full circle. It's important to take care of yourself and process what you've been through in order to help the child heal. And then our last one, my favorite little guy here, the turtle. Truth is to know all of these things, meaning to live truthfully is to understand and practice all of these teachings. Once violence has occurred in the home, a child can become confused as to what is appropriate or not appropriate. Sitting down and coming up with simple house guidelines is a great way to remind everyone that violence is not okay. It's also an activity that involves the whole family and allows any children to voice their opinion on what they think behavior is and is not acceptable, which can be kind of interesting because that might allow them to say, you know, mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or whoever, I noticed there was some yelling and I don't think that's acceptable. And that could be a real eye-opening moment. So examples for family guidelines include ask before taking something from somebody else. No hurting anyone's body, which means kicking, hitting, punching. No hurting anyone's feelings, insults, yelling, name calling, and saying sorry when we do hurt somebody's feelings. Living truthfully also means accepting who we are, including emotions. Children who experience gender-based violence in the home may also experience big emotions that can be overwhelming. As parents, it's important to remind our child that all emotions are normal. Instead, it is about what we do with those emotions. Talking about emotions also opens up space for children of gender identities to feel like it is normal. For example, instead of boys being told that to be emotionless, they can be told that emotions are okay. It is okay to be mad, glad, or sad. Ideas for talking to children about our emotions include books. Some examples would be The Color Monster or Shouting at the Rain. There's programs that like the Zones of Regulation, and if you Google them, they often have like really good free templates that you can use. Talking about feelings in a normal way. I'm feeling sad today. Mom is so happy today. What are you feeling today? Make coping strategies fun. Calming jars, which are my favorite. I must have 20 of them on this table right now. So you can just look up calming jars. They're really fun to do. Fun breathing exercises, yoga, coloring, crafting, or a screaming box, which can be fun too. So the last slide here. Oh, we can go to the next slide. Oh, perfect, thank you. So to finish things off, I want to end with one of my favorite things in the world, and probably why I love my job as a child and youth outreach worker, which is Walt Disney World. I think this picture really resonates with these past few slides. Not all hope is lost. As a parent, there are plenty of things you can do with a child who has experienced gender-based violence in the home. Today, we decided not to run from this violence, but to instead learn what we can do. Thank you guys for tuning into my little section here.
All right. Thank you, Megan, so much. That was wonderful. We really appreciated your very thought-provoking presentation and providing all of us with such an informative and culturally relevant discussion on parenting tips, tools, and strategies that families experiencing gender-based violence can certainly benefit from. Thank you. Now we invite you to our question and answer section with our two presenters. The discussion will be 20 to 25 minutes. Our speakers will be asked a few questions that address the issue of parenting in a gender-based violence environment. The Q&A will be moderated by my colleague, Melissa Clark. Please go ahead, Melissa.
Hi, thanks, Anne. Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Clark, and as Anne said, I will be moderating our question and answer section. So I will pose a question to our speakers to generate some discussion on parenting in gender-based violence environment and gather their thoughts and opinions on the issue. If you have a question you want to ask, please put the question in the chat and I will ask it to our guest speakers. We will try to get as many questions as possible, and if we don't get to your question, please reach out to us at the MFRC and we will be happy to explore your question with them directly. So on to our first question. So the first question we have is, what gender by GBV trends or issues are you seeing in Nova Scotia? Megan, did you want to try that one?
Sure.
Put you on the spot.
No worries. So yeah, what trends of parenting issues? So I would say the biggest trend that I see, or the biggest struggle, is like overcompensating, feeling like my child has gone through this, and what's supposed to be a home that I'm supposed to provide that's supposed to be safe. And so a lot of parents feel they need to overcompensate, and that includes basically, kind of letting the child run the house. And while that's so understandable, it really gets rid of those important things like routine and discipline and helping a child grow. So it's kind of like that balancing act of being there for the child, being validating, understanding what they're going through, but at the same time still providing that routine and discipline. So for me, that's what I see a lot in sort of the homes. I'm not sure if Amanda has something different.
Hi, sure, thanks. Something I've noticed a lot of the same, but something that else I've noticed that happens a lot is especially when a parent is ready to kind of embark on the healing journey and everything, wanting as many services as possible, as soon as possible. And while I get it, I totally understand, that might also create a bit of overwhelm for everyone, for parent, for kids. And so kind of maybe even working with the counselors, if you've chosen to reach out to a DV shelter, working with the counselors to even just my mouth isn't working. To break that down a bit and simplify it for yourself and prioritize, and being able to prioritize. And that's something really powerful that women's support counselors and children youth support counselors, parenting support counselors can do, is kind of break down that overwhelm into sizable chunks that are easily digestible.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for those really great answers. My second question, so we'll put Amanda on the spot first this time. So what are some specific challenges that you're seeing with parents trying to parent in a GBV environment?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is taking care of everything and everyone, and often, because of the nature of gender-based violence, I'm going to use mom here, but mom is often putting herself very last when she needs to be very first. And so often I see mom making sure everyone's okay, just like she always has, and forgetting to make sure that she's okay. And she's just the most instrumental piece in this whole puzzle. Her healing is so powerful to the overall healing of the family unit.
Thank you. Megan, did you have anything you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest take homes, like Amanda said, is the importance of self-care and putting the parent first. But I would also say a big challenge is recognizing that in order to heal from something, everybody needs to heal. So one thing that the Mi'kmaq Family Healing Center and also the Autumn House does is they have men's workers. And so having the philosophy of the whole family unit is important. And I think it's a challenge because sometimes we don't think about that. Sometimes we think we just need to fix the child, fix the mom, fix. We often see that with kiddos, right? Fix my kid. But it's really important to kind of look at the whole family environment and work with everybody.
Awesome, thank you.
And sorry, I just wanted
Yeah.
to quickly add in there,
Yeah.
everything Megan said, yes, yes, yes. And then I also want to extend a lot of grace and patience and understanding to mom in this situation, because at this point she's probably worrying about filling out applications for income, applications for housing, applications for this and lawyers and this and that. And so it makes sense that self-care isn't a priority. It makes sense. And so when I speak of that, it is not to instill any kind of guilt or shame or anything in someone who's really struggling to juggle all of the pieces. And that is totally understandable. So I'm talking in a picture perfect ideal world. Take care of yourself first, mom, but like probably that's gonna, take the back seat to some of these other priorities at first. And I get it. And there's no guilt or shame in that. We're all doing the best we can with what we have at the time. So
Awesome.
I was just going to add to, when we talk about self-care, and I'm sure Amanda would agree with me here, self-care is not always about take a bubble bath, have bath bombs, take yourself on a magical vacation, all of those really kind of intense, like self-care can be it's varied and it can depend on the person. And it could be a matter of taking 5 minutes to watch your favorite TV show, or it can be laying in bed and just letting all your tears flow without any interruptions. It could be, so different for everybody. So I really want people to remember that we're not saying, go home and take a bubble bath. We're saying it can look different for everybody.
my self-care is hiding in the closet to drink a glass of water by myself.
Mine is sitting in my car on my way home for the first 10 minutes before I get out of my car. That's mine. So you guys have some really great things. So what can be done to support these parents? That's a big question.
Yeah. So there, obviously we're here today. FANS is a really big support. There's shelters across Nova Scotia that provide outreach services, in-house services, crisis calls. Other supports are within the schools, especially for all the kiddos. Like Schools Plus is really good. They've got outreach workers, they've got social workers, nurses, everything. So they can be a really good support. And then also kind of just, I really like to have, whenever I get the chance to work with parents, I like to do the support maps, just because sometimes you're surprised at how many people in your life are really there for you and are supportive of you. And sometimes we can get lost in the I'm alone, I'm isolated, I've got no one. And then when you start to see, oh, well, I've got this friend here and that friend there, and I've got some online support here. And that's the other thing. Facebook groups can be really supportive. Social media can definitely have its downfalls, but there's a lot of support for people all over the world.
Wonderful. Amanda, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would, but I forgot the question.
So it's kind of that second part of what can be done to help support these parents.
Right. Yeah. I think just a really basic way is to be very responsive every time they choose to reach out. And that's something that we strive to do. There's no judgment if you reach out and you're like, oh, not yet. And then you reach out a bit later and, we totally understand that. I do believe the national average right now is 10, I think it's 7 or 10 for how many times somebody leaves an abusive situation before they leave for good. And it's 7, yeah. And so I think it's really important to know that we understand that, and there's no judgment there at all. And then also, I think extending a lot more empathy and compassion to the amount of strength and courage it takes to make changes, and to understand that what you're going through is not okay, and that I think we just as a society need to be a softer place for people to land, really. I know that's such a big generalized thing to say, but it can be a pretty hard landing for some people sometimes. And so I think if we just approached everything with softness and gentleness, I think we'd just all be a lot better off.
I love that. So we are still in a pandemic, though they seem to think we're coming out of it. But one of our questions is, how has the pandemic impacted parents trying to parent in a GBV environment?
Okay, I can. So, I mean, it's definitely changed the dynamics of a lot of things, including how we operated for a while. Whereas I was so used to working with the kiddos all the time, one-on-one, and then, connecting with mom every so often. And then I did a lot more parenting support throughout the pandemic, just because kiddos really couldn't handle the phone or Zoom or anything like that. We tried, and it just wasn't sustainable while we weren't doing face-to-face things. And so I did a lot of parenting support. And I think community and connection is so important for not only healing, but surviving and for existing. And we're born social creatures and built for connection. And to have that be taken away and to be forced into isolation and seclusion and all of that, not only just for one sustainable time, but like glimpses of not being in that situation anymore, and then, oh, just kidding. I think it's taken a huge toll. And so I think we learned a lot in terms of how much community means and how much connection means. I just saw your question, Anne, and I had more contact with parents throughout the pandemic and less contact with children throughout the pandemic. However, as an overall number, it was more families than pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I'll speak to that as well. So within my role, I strictly, within my current role, I should say, I strictly work with kids, children and youth. So during the pandemic, for me, it was about, trying as hard as I could to navigate the Zoom. But Amanda's very, very right in that it's very challenging, especially the younger the child is. But yeah, we actually just went over our statistics today in a staff meeting, and our numbers did go up during the pandemic. And I think, Amanda said it all. It affected our operations. It affected people being isolated. As humans, we are like that. That social belonging is huge in our wellness. And so without that, I really think that the pandemic really did have an impact on our mental health, and therefore we did see more escalated gender-based violence. So yeah, but Amanda, like, yeah, that was yes.
So I know we're down to about 10 more minutes. So I really wanted to get to ask you the question, both of you, and you can kind of think a little bit in between, is can you review some key strategies for parents in a gender-based violence situation? You know, we're always wanting to give people like a takeaway or something to kind of like, you know, kind of ponder a little bit. And sometimes strategies, those really great strategies I know you both have. So whoever would like to start first.
I can go. So for me, the take home would be the routine piece, because it is really important for a child to have some predictability, some predictability within the home. You know, it doesn't have to be, sometimes when we think about routine, we think, okay, you know, we're telling the parent to put up this big fancy schedule and they have to keep record of, you know, all these activities and everything else. But routine can simply be, you know, this is when we get up, this is when we go to bed, this is when we have supper. And to try to keep that routine as much as possible really allows the child some sense of safety. And again, the take home, and I think everybody will take this home, which is mom needs to take care of herself. It's really important that as parents, we take care of ourselves. And that can mean, you know, seeking help. That can mean taking time for ourselves. That can mean reaching out, that sort of thing. So those are my two main pieces.
Awesome. Go ahead, Amanda.
I clicked the unmute and it didn't work, but here I am. So yes, all of that structure, routine, predictability is something that's often a struggle in a home where there is violence, is the predictability piece often is not there. And so creating predictability in anywhere, in any place you can, is huge in terms of making children feel as safe as you possibly can make them feel. And then also something that my manager likes to say and has said recently is be mindful of the energy you bring. So oftentimes I find my reaction to my daughter's behaviors are more about how I'm feeling in that moment and less about what she's actually doing. And so being mindful that my cup is empty today, and, you know, maybe I'm not going to approach this situation in the healthiest way because I'm done. And then even taking a moment and like Megan had said, putting on your oxygen mask and hiding in the closet and having a drink of water and just like breathe for a sec and then go back to the situation. But being mindful of the energy you're bringing to the situation and asking yourself, because there are certain behaviors you're going to see in children who have experienced violence in the home. And often they are challenging behaviors and it is very triggering. And so asking yourself, am I co-escalating this situation or am I co-regulating this situation? So just overall, just being really mindful of the energy you're bringing to that particular situation.
Awesome.
I just wanted to add to, like, you know, the other, I guess, one of the biggest things is that it is okay to have those moments. So, you know, a lot of parents don't want to disclose, oh, I'm just done. But it is okay. I mean, kids are difficult on a good day. So it's okay to be done. It's okay to have those moments. It's okay to need to put on your oxygen mask. I just wanted to kind of remind everybody of that too.
And sorry, I'm also going to pop in and can I tell you that I have sat on the bed with my 3.5-year-old after I have raised my voice and not kept my cool. And I have not been mindful of my energy, and I totally co-escalated the situation and sat side by side with my daughter afterwards and said, "Whew, Mom has some pretty big feelings and I didn't deal with that very well, did I?" And she's like, "No." And we talked that through, and I own that. I own when I didn't do the best that I could, and I recognize after, like, whew, I didn't do that very well, did I? Like, I gotta work on that, huh? And she's like, "Yeah, Mom, you gotta work on that." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know." So I mean, we all, even those of us who sound like we're probably always Mary Poppins and stuff, like, I'm not. I'm not. I have a cup that runs dry too.
So thank you both for being really honest and sharing that kind of stuff, so that those who are here or watching can really understand that they're not alone, that we all have those feelings as parents. The MFRC, so just a couple of things about the MFRC can offer for military families, for supports and services to help families cope with issues of violence, to access supports for the mental health and well-being team. Families can call our main number, which is 902-427-7788, and ask to speak to an intake worker. The intake worker can complete an intake, and then we'll ask you a few questions about your situation, and then they will refer you to a family well-being counselor. All supports and services are free and confidential. We never share any of your information with any family members, the CAV member, or the chain of command. Once you meet with a family well-being counselor, you and the counselor will determine the best plan for you. So, and thanks, Margaret, for switching the slide to the resources. So we'd also like to share with you some of the important resources that were shared in the presentations this evening for those of you who may want to know about specific supports and services in the community to help someone you may know experiencing gender-based violence. If you are experiencing an emergency, you of course can call 911. You can call or text the Transition House Association Nova Scotia at the number on the screen for supports and services as well. The Halifax and Region Military Family Resource Center has a mental health and well-being team, of course, we just talked about them, that offers short-term supports and services like crisis supports to family members 16 years and older. And of course, to access those supports, you call the 902-427-7788 number and ask to speak to the intake worker Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. ShelterSafe.ca provides information to help connect women and their children across Canada with the nearest shelter for safety and support. FamilySmart.ca helps children and young people by helping their families and others caring adults. Selfreg.ca provides resources to parents and educators on recognizing stress in your child, that causes the cause of stress, and how to manage stress and how to deal with the challenges of parenting. Children, youth, and young adults from a military family can access free mental health and well-being supports by texting Kids Help Phone. The key word is CAV Kids, so CAFKIDS at 686868 for service in English, and it is a 24/7 e-mental health service.
All right, well, thank you so much, ladies. What a wonderful discussion that you had on parenting in a gender-based violence scenario. Thank you so much for all of your insights. We certainly appreciate that. So we would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank everyone who has attended this evening for your time and your interest in tonight's topic and question and answering discussion with Amanda, Megan, and Melissa. We would like to specifically thank our two distinguished presenters, Amanda and Megan, for the incredible work that each of you do daily to support and protect the women and children in your care escaping gender-based violence. Your thoughtful insights on gender-based violence and cultural parenting tips, tools, and strategies will help inform and support parents trying to cope in these situations. Both of you have helped us all become much more knowledgeable and aware of this issue impacting so many parents. One of the main highlights for me of the presentations is that parents are never alone in these situations. There's organizations like the Transition Homes of Nova Scotia and the Halifax and Region MFRC that will play a critical role in supporting families that may experience gender-based violence. And together, we all seek to make families much more stronger and resilient. All of tonight's information will be sent out to all the participants in an email in the coming days with the highlights from tonight's topic and resources. We've also recorded tonight's program and it will be available shortly on the MFRC YouTube channel. I would also like to send out a specific thank you to our producer tonight, Margaret McKenzie, who did a wonderful job behind the scenes. So on behalf of all of us, Margaret, thank you so much for your participation tonight and your guidance and support in the program. So good night, everyone, and thank you so much for attending. Good night.
And thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
You're welcome.